This month, we have Bob Krause, who will be presenting on the modern public power. Bob is a result-oriented public policy strategist who has a career tackling innovative, disruptive blue ocean challenges. Blue ocean is a term I just learned for tackling problems by looking at new ways to do things instead of trying to compete in the established paradigms. And he's going to talk about a new paradigm for the grid as a way of getting around the established monopolies called the Spark Community Utility Model, of which he's the team leader. So with that introduction, I will let Bob start telling us about the Spark Community Utility Model. And I will ask people to hold questions, by the way, and then Bob will answer them all at the end. So Bob, you have it, and go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Jose. So 3 years ago, a group of energy experts started meeting regularly. Many were old hands who'd already made significant contributions to the clean energy movement here in California and across the country. When I joined the group, I was the neophyte. If we'd been meeting in person, I would have been that guy who was going out to get coffee for everybody. Though I've worn many hats over the years, I knew little about the electric utility ecosystem at the time. So I asked lots of questions. And the experience wasn't too dissimilar from a 3-year-old who asks a lot of why questions. And when you give them the answer, they give you the next why question and so on. So the group had already been meeting for some time, trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat to enable the grid to evolve from this monolithic bulk power Goliath designed to transmit electricity hundreds of miles from where it was generated to where it was being used. After a time, the focus of the group changed from research to action when we zeroed in on the goal of kickstarting the transition to clean, affordable, and community-controlled generation co-located where the load is. And we set our sights on having shovels in the ground to begin this transition, not in 20 to 25 years, but in 3 to 5. And at this point, instead of the people referring to us as the usual suspects on a challenge like this, we started calling ourselves the Spark team. As we rolled up our sleeves and took on the challenge, we did so by returning to first principles. And by first principles, I mean the intrinsic laws of nature that drive a system, whether that's how planes fly or why energy costs are so high and investor-owned utilities so unresponsive to the times. We knew why energy costs so much. That is, we understood the framework that had been laid down a century before that granted companies monopolies with a guaranteed rate of return on every dollar they invested. We knew that what those companies had done to take advantage of their franchises and how they'd effectively taken over the California Public Utilities Commission, the legislature, and even the governor's office to serve their interest rather than the public good that those institutions were mandated to protect. I'm not getting in advance on here. There we go. Okay. But now the world's changing rapidly. Utilities and regulators just haven't kept up. And so what we need and what we went searching for was leverage that originated at a level much deeper than the standard playbook. We were done asking for permission that was never going to be given to us. And we were done trying to change the system and done waiting for it to change on its own. So we went back to the state constitution because it says that local governments have the right to control utilities within their borders. Charter cities have even stronger independence around home rule. When we looked at the regulations, we found that most of them don't even apply if a local government owns their own utility and doesn't touch the IOU's distribution grid. We also followed the money, and we didn't have to look far to see that IOU energy costs are exploding. But the rates of muni utilities remain much lower, like 20 to as much as 45% less. So why were cities failing when they tried to create their own munis? And a lot of times, It just came down to the cost of buying the IOU's existing distribution lines. But what if nascent munis didn't have to negotiate? What if they could lay their own wires? Maybe not all at once, but in sections at a time. And while we were pondering those questions, we had a major breakthrough. We sat in on a call last summer with Missy Stoltz in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She was telling residents about their new sustainable energy community, or I'm sorry, sustainable energy utility, or SEU. It's a muni utility, but one that doesn't displace the IOU. It supplements it instead. The IOU and SEU run in parallel, and SEU customers opt in. So not everybody's an SEU customer, at least not right away. And it gets even better because the power these opt-in customers get from the SEU is on an as available basis only. So it's kind of like when you have solar on your roof and maybe a battery or two. You get power from the system, but only when it has some available. And you get the balance of your power through your utility meter. These were just the capabilities that our team had been looking for here in California. Cities that try to create immunity for themselves have been failing because the utilities want wildly high prices for their distribution lines. So don't buy them. As a matter of fact, don't touch them. They're old and falling apart anyway. A muni utility that doesn't rely in any way on IOU infrastructure is free of CPUC oversight. And with that, we realized that we'd cracked the code entirely. After several more months researching how to map Ann Arbor's model into something usable by cities across California, we created an SEU derivative just for California that we call the Spark Community Utility, an SCU. Okay, so I just threw a lot at you, so let's back up and take some inventory. Creating an SCU Muni is much easier and less prone to stillbirths because it's none of the CPUC's or IOU's business. The IOU continues to operate as it always has. There are no negotiations over their infrastructure because we don't want it and we don't need it. And as long as we don't touch it, the CPUC has no oversight over a municipal utility. The SCU is complementary, not competitive, and this is important. The IOU continues to be the primary provider of power in their service territory. Even if there's an SCU running in parallel, the IOU remains the load-serving entity. The SCU just provides power on an as available basis. They have no resource adequacy obligations because they don't have an obligation to serve the way the IOU does. The SEU offers supplementary energy-related products to residents and businesses, but only to those who opt in, that is, those that choose to be SEU customers. And let me tell you, the SEU is not your parents' utility. They're modern public power. Just consider the products they offer. The SEU framework is designed to be flexible so that the product mix can depend on what the local priorities are. In Ann Arbor, they created a web page where residents could vote for various product options, providing valuable market data and touch points, all important touch points with the community. What Ann Arbor residents said is they want programs to help them improve the energy efficiency of their homes and offices, because it's Michigan after all. They also want EV chargers and rooftop solar and batteries. All of these are legit options because SCUs run a billing system that's independent from the IOUs. And because they're part of the local government, they have access to low interest capital and of course don't pay stockholder dividends. This allows energy upgrades like fuel switching and rooftop solar with batteries to be put on the SEU's balance sheet and paid off through monthly payments that reduce customers' overall energy costs. You probably picked up on the fact that one of the reasons SEUs don't need IOU's distribution lines is because they don't need to serve the entire city on day one. They start with an initial product mix that's quickly profitable and may not even need distribution lines at all. Again, like rooftop solar. Only once the concentration of these local generation resources in a neighborhood is high enough does the SEU consider laying its own wires to connect properties together. And it's an exciting new opportunity when an SEU gets to the point where they're connecting customers using new distribution lines, because it allows the SEU to provide clean, low cost, and locally generated power at prices independent of the IOU and regulators. The value of this power is fairly priced, both for those importing power and those exporting it. But keep in mind, SEU customers are now going to have two meters, one from the IOU, which they've always had, and another SEU, another meter that the SEU uses to track the power that's generated, used, and shared. For example, if the solar on a customer's roof is owned by the customer, which is the standard case today, right? Then the SEU meter runs backward when the customer exports some of that power to other SEU customers or to charge community-wide batteries. So it works just like the same net metering program we've had here for 20 plus years, except that the SEU customers get paid for the power that they produce and that they pay for the power they use themselves at a much more reasonable and balanced price than the IOUs now offer. I've talked to a lot of city managers in the last few years, and a number of them have started the conversation with the totality of what I know about municipal power is how to pay our PG&E bill. And to that, we say, don't worry, I got you. Whereas Ann Arbor's SEU is designed for Ann Arbor, the SEU strategy is a flexible framework that can be adapted to fit the needs of communities across California. It's designed for success. The SEU team has thought through the challenges that are the root causes of most municipalization failures. We're developing a library of resources and a community of specialists to help local governments progress through municipalization and launch and long-term growth and expansion. This is modern public power. It fully leverages the current regulatory environment to allow communities to take control of their energy needs on their terms. It does so not by attempting to displace or buy out the incumbent, but by leaving it in place. The IOU retains their monopoly as the primary provider of power, and as such, they continue to have an obligation to serve and resource adequacy requirements that go along with those obligations. While the SEU's customer base must grow one customer at a time, doing so enables them to selectively offer the services that make sense for their community and so can be profitable earlier. In this way, the SCU is complementary rather than competing with the IOU. And here's something strange. Together, they address the needs of the community. And it's important to hold on to that perspective. The city's decision to create a municipal utility is now far easier than it's ever been and has a far better chance at success because they no longer have to negotiate. They start small and grow incrementally when there's a business case for doing so. The SEU is a community resource that starts out shaped through the process of community engagement and feedback, owned by the local government and for the benefit of the community. Boulder, Colorado spent 30, I'm sorry, I'm getting some noise, but anyway, Boulder, Colorado is said to have spent $30 million in their failed attempt to municipalize. It's estimated that Hercules lost 12 million in 6 years when they surrendered their nascent muni back to PG&E. Those days are over. Municipal utilities still need to be run properly, but the process of creating them has gone from a high upfront risk endeavor to a low risk phased approach. Let's zoom out a bit and consider the strategic underpinnings that the SEU framework is founded on. First off, we need to look squarely at what being defensive, protective, and maybe even timid has gotten us. And some would say that's nowhere. From here on out, we need to think in terms of playing a smart, offensive game. Don't wait for change. It's not coming. What's coming is what we manifest. We need to stop referring to regulatory capture in the abstract. It's real, and we have to adjust our thinking and our tactics to reflect that reality. The CPUC notice and comment process and their administrative law judges have rigged the system, right? So stop asking for permission. It's never going to be given. The coin of the realm is leverage, and leverage is power. Look how the IOU's tactics changed when San Jose got serious about creating their own spot muni. While that's still playing itself out, the dynamic to watch here is how utilities respond only when they're forced to. The SEUs forced utilities to change their game, but let's not be confused. They're the tiniest bit more reasonable only as long as those communities maintain that leverage, and the SEU gives communities long-term leverage. For me, I want to work on successful projects that we can look back on and say, that made a difference. What I don't want to invest in is projects that would be awesome if they were successful, but have little chance of crossing the finish line. So when I'm talking about alpha and beta, alpha is the inherent opportunity that's being chased, but an equally important consideration is beta, which is the risk that it might not succeed. The SEU strategy is designed to address community goals and priorities, and it's also designed to minimize the risk of failure to the point where it makes overwhelming sense to invest in it. That's what I mean when I say that when we choose what to invest in, we need to fully consider the balance between alpha and beta. We're stronger when we work together. But in order to do so effectively, we need to focus on the values that we share. In other words, we need to be pointed in the same direction. For example, I'm encouraging the cities that we're in conversations with about becoming SEU pilots to form working groups among themselves so they can advance through the process together, sharing knowledge, costs, and resources. Though the creation of a muni has been greatly simplified, taking on the responsibility of a city-owned and operated utility is not a decision to be taken lightly. So the Spark team is developing a library of resources and a community of specialists that can educate and guide city administrators through the process. Without diving into too many details, I want to give you a sense of what's involved in that process. I'm sure it's not a surprise to hear that the first steps of feasibility study authorized by elected officials that analyzes the financial, engineering, legal, and operational aspects of such an undertaking. There's a tremendous amount of information gathering and learning that takes place during the study. So though outside consultants might be brought in, it's crucial that staff be intimately involved and ultimately be the ones driving the process forward. The primary deliverable is a comprehensive report that includes a projected business plan backed up by financials as well as legal and regulatory analysis, all of which is presented to city leaders for a go, no-go decision on whether to move forward. Okay, I'm not getting an advancement here. How's that? There we go. Launching an SCU is not just a technical endeavor. It's a community project that'll succeed only with broad public buy-in and stakeholder alignment. Early and proactive engagement with all interested groups will make the difference between a smooth path and a political battle. So once the muni's been given the green light, A big piece of the shift in focus is toward community engagement. Ann Arbor went so far as to voluntarily present a ballot initiative to voters, which received an approval rating of 79%, a testament to how well aligned their community is with their SEU initiative. Establishing robust governance and operational structure is a crucial step for any startup process. This involves defining how the SEU is legally formed, who oversees it, and how it's run its day-to-day operations like billing and maintenance. Depending on local resources, this phase will begin concurrent with community outreach and financing efforts. Launching and expanding an SEU requires smart financing to fund infrastructure and operations while ensuring competitive rates. Cities have several tools available to finance the upfront investment needed for projects. A sound financial plan will mix and match funding sources to minimize risks and costs. With everything in place, the city can move into implementation, where the SEU's vision becomes a reality. This stage is about executing the initial projects effectively and building the operational capacity to run the SEU reliably. But once the SEU is up and running, the journey's really just begun. The true promise lies in its ability to scale over time, expanding services and coverage to eventually approach the capabilities of a full municipal utility, all while maintaining financial and operational stability. Let me give you a status update. The SEU strategy is designed to meet city administrators and other local leaders where they're at, often beginning with minimal knowledge of utility operations, and guide them step by step toward establishing a community-owned utility. A detailed roadmap overview document is available to download, and I'll add a link to it in the chat. It's an introduction to electric utilities and the SEU strategy to help stakeholders grasp the fundamental changes and opportunities that the strategy offers. We're in conversation with several forward-looking local governments and large-scale developments with a keen interest in SEUs as an alternative to IOUs. And we're continuing to build out an extensive library of resources that give public officials an actionable municipalization blueprint delivered in accessible, user-friendly formats. And we're actively pursuing funding partnerships, as much of the SCU development to date has been done pro bono, but it simply can't continue as such as we scale. By contributing now, foundations, family offices, and individuals can join a bold, results-driven initiative poised to transform how cities and communities own, manage, and profit from clean local energy infrastructure. I want to encourage everybody here to step up and get involved yourself. We need hands-on technical, financial, engineering, operational, and policy expertise. We need strategically minded local champions able to support other local leaders as you investigate the suitability of an SEU in your community. The SEU strategy is not simply a navel-gazing exercise. It's an action plan. Don't watch from the sidelines. Learn more by reading the roadmap overview, and then contact the Spark team to suggest how you can help California move toward modern public power.
Thank you for watching this presentation from the California Alliance for Community Energy. This concludes the published portion of our monthly call. If you would like to participate in our monthly calls, including Q&A, please consider joining the California Alliance for Community Energy. For more information, you can see our website at cacommunityenergy.org/apply.